The sun is dropping behind the horizon, and that is your first problem. In a modern city, sunset is decoration. Lights come on, doors lock, dinner arrives, the day keeps going. Here, sunset closes the world. The cold sharpens almost immediately. Wind moves across open ground with nothing tall enough to stop it. Snow sits in the hollows. Dry grass bends flat. Your breath turns white in front of your face, and beyond the last strip of orange sky, the landscape is already becoming a wall of blue-gray shadow. Somewhere behind you, something large makes a sound. Not a roar, not a movie monster, just one low noise from somewhere you cannot see. Then silence. You look down at what you have. No house, no electric light, no glass window, no locked door, no phone, no rescue team. You have animal hides wrapped around your body, a small group of other people, food that had to be found before dark, a place chosen for the night, and a fire that suddenly feels much smaller than it did 10 minutes ago. This is not an impossible fantasy. Humans really did occupy brutally cold parts of Ice Age Eurasia. Around 45,000 years ago, Homo sapiens were already using sites in Central Europe during subarctic conditions. Later Ice Age communities pushed even farther into cold landscapes, carrying not thicker fur or sharper teeth, but technology and knowledge. So tonight, you get a fair chance. You are not dropped naked into the snow. You are not alone. You are not expected to invent survival from nothing. You are living one night with the kind of advantages that made human life in this world possible. The question is whether those advantages are enough. If the sun disappears now, are you still alive when it comes back? The first surprise is that most of tonight was decided before tonight began. Your group did not wait for darkness and then ask where everyone should sleep. The stopping place was chosen while there was still light. Wind matters, fuel matters, water matters, the shape of the ground matters. So does what has passed through this place before you. The fire was not an accident either. Fuel had to be gathered. Hides had to be prepared long before this evening. Tools had to exist before they were needed. Food had to come from somewhere. A bad decision made in daylight could still be waiting for you after dark. This immediately ruins one of our favorite stories about prehistoric human. We like the heroic version. One tough person, one sharp stick, one savage night. Nature attacks. Human wins. Real survival was less dramatic and much more impressive. It was preparation repeated until preparation became culture. The hides around your body are part of that culture. Humans are badly dressed by nature for a cold step. A mammoth carries insulation everywhere. A wolf is born wearing its winter layer. You have exposed skin, fingers that lose warmth, and a body that works best inside a narrow range of temperatures. But you can steal another animal's advantage. Direct Ice Age clothing rarely survives, yet the archaeological trail is still there. Hide-working tools appear long before the end of the Pleistocene. Bone awls could pierce skin. Later, eyed needles made finer sewing easier. In northern Eurasia, some of the earliest known eyed needles date to roughly 40,000 years ago. By then, clothing was not simply a loose skin thrown over a shoulder. People could make fitted, layered garments suited to cold environments. That changes everything. The person beside your fire should not look like a cartoon caveman wearing one tiny scrap of fur. Someone in this world may have spent hours scraping, cutting, piercing, fitting, drying, repairing, and reusing hides because clothing was not decoration. It was portable shelter. Still, clothing does not create heat. It only helps you keep the heat your body already makes. The fire changes the space around you in another way. Orange light jumps across faces. Smoke is pushed sideways by the wind. Someone leans forward and adjusts the burning material. Another person turns food close to the heat. A child or younger member of the group stays near the warmest part of the camp. For a few meters, the night feels smaller, and then you look past the light. The darkness begins exactly where the fire stops winning. That is your second problem. A campfire feels like protection because modern stories have trained us to see it that way. Fire is useful. It brings warmth, light, cooking, and a social center. Humans had controlled fire long before the Ice Age world we are imagining. But fire is not a force field. Beyond the glow is an ecosystem that does not shut down because you are tired. Late Pleistocene Eurasia held predators that would make a modern European landscape feel strangely empty by comparison. Wolves were there. Hyenas occupied parts of Eurasia. Cave lions moved through the same broad world. Bears used caves and sheltered places. Humans and large carnivores sometimes competed for the same spaces and the same animal resources. You hear the sound again. This time it is shorter. A scrape against hard ground. Everyone near the fire becomes still. One person's hand stops halfway to the flames. Another turns without speaking. You listen so hard that the crackle of the fire becomes annoying. Nothing happens. That is almost worse. In daylight, distance is visible. At night, distance becomes imagination. A sound could be 50 meters away or much farther. A shadow can become a body. Two pale points can become eyes. Every shape beyond the firelight has permission to be dangerous until proven otherwise, and your nervous system loves that rule. This is where the night begins to feel ancient, in a way no museum display can reproduce. You do not need a giant predator to attack you. You only need to know that one could exist beyond the light. For a while, nothing comes closer. A rock overhang behind the camp looks comforting now, and that creates another prehistoric trap for the imagination. We tend to picture caves as ready-made houses. Stone walls, a roof, no wind. Problem solved. Except a cave is only useful if something else has not claimed it first. Across Ice Age Eurasia, humans were not the only animals interested in sheltered spaces. Bears used caves. Hyenas used caves. Lions sometimes left remains in cave systems. Archaeologists often find human and carnivore traces in the same places, though not necessarily from the same night or even the same century. The point is simple. Shelter was valuable to everyone. A dark opening in a cliff could mean protection from weather. It could also mean old bones, a strong smell, tracks at the entrance, or signs that the safest looking place on the landscape was already part of another animal's routine. This is where local knowledge matters again. You see a hole in the rock. Someone experienced sees history. Has smoke blackened the ceiling before? Are there fresh tracks, old droppings, scratches, bones pulled deeper inside? Is the wind better outside than the risk inside? Nobody has to explain all of this in words for it to shape behavior. A place can become known across repeated visits. A warning can be remembered. A route can be preferred because another route caused trouble years earlier. That is another thing the archaeological record hides from us. A tool can survive. A bone can survive. A hearth can survive. A grandmother saying, "Do not sleep there," usually cannot. Yet that kind of information may have saved as many nights as any sharp stone ever did. The group settles again. That is when you notice the most important survival tool in the entire camp. It is not the fire. It is not the clothing. It is not the stone edge resting near someone's hand. It is everyone else. A lone person is one body that can get cold, tired, distracted, injured, or lost. A group is several bodies and several memories working at once. One person can rest while another is awake. One notices the wind changing. Another recognizes tracks. Someone remembers where extra fuel lies. Someone else knows which sound belongs to a harmless animal and which sound means the camp should become alert. Knowledge is spread across people. So is attention. So is fear. That matters because a modern person dropped here would not mainly suffer from being physically weak. You would suffer from being ignorant. You know how to read a battery icon. You can read a road sign. You know the sound of a message notification, a closing elevator, a car approaching from behind. None of that language is spoken here. The people around you read a different world. A mark in the ground is not dirt. It is information. A smell on the wind is not just unpleasant. It may tell you what passed nearby. A line of broken grass can mean movement. Clouds, snow, animal calls, old bones, droppings, tracks, wind direction, the shape of a valley, the quality of wood, the behavior of birds, the silence of birds, all of it can become useful. To you, the darkness is empty. To them, it is full of clues. Several hours pass. You do not know how many. There is no clock glowing beside the bed, no screen telling you it is 11:47. The night is measured by cold, tiredness, the state of the fire, and how long it feels since you last heard something move beyond the camp. The first part of the evening had tasks. Now comes the dangerous part. Boredom. The fire becomes familiar. The wind becomes familiar. The darkness becomes familiar. Your body wants to stop treating every sound like a crisis. That is good for your nerves. It is bad for attention. Surviving one Ice Age night is not one glorious battle against a beast. It is hundreds of ordinary moments in which nothing is allowed to become a disaster. The clothing stays dry enough. The shelter keeps cutting some of the wind. Nobody wanders away alone. The fire remains useful. The group keeps track of itself. People rest without everybody becoming unaware at the same time. Nothing spectacular happens, and that is exactly what success looks like. Then the smell changes. It is faint at first. Animal, Maybe old meat, maybe dung, maybe something carried from far away, maybe something much closer than you want it to be. One of the adults near the edge of the fire reacts before you do. Their posture changes. That is enough to make everyone else look up. You stare into the dark. At first there is nothing, then 2 points catch the light. Low to the ground, gone. You blink. There they are again. For 1 second, your imagination gives the eyes a body, huge shoulders, long teeth. A cat built heavier than anything you would ever want to meet outside a cage. But imagination is not evidence. We cannot reconstruct a specific night like this from bones alone, and not every pair of eyes in the Pleistocene belonged to a cave lion stalking humans. What we can say is stranger. Humans really shared landscapes with cave lions, and the relationship was not simply predator above, human below. A roughly 48,000-year-old cave lion from what is now Germany preserves evidence interpreted as a fatal spear wound. Neanderthals were capable of killing a large predator. Other remains suggest that lion skins were used as well. So if something is watching your camp tonight, it is not looking at helpless prey. It is looking at the most unusual animal on the landscape. An animal with no claws worth mentioning, no thick coat of its own, no impressive teeth, no night vision that can compete with a cat. And yet this animal carries fire, changes its skin with clothing, shares information, throws or thrusts weapons, plans ahead, and reacts as a group. Humans are physically unimpressive right up until the moment culture enters the picture. The eyes disappear. Nobody relaxes immediately. But nothing charges the camp. That matters too. Large predators are dangerous, not suicidal. Injury can be catastrophic for an animal that has to hunt for a living. A group of alert humans clustered around light and flame is a very different target from one isolated person in the dark. The night moves on. Then the real enemy arrives. Not teeth. Wind. It strengthens slowly enough that you almost miss the chain. Smoke begins to stream harder to one side. The exposed skin of your face stings more. Warmth that felt comfortable earlier becomes something you have to stay close to. This is the moment when every prehistoric survival fantasy makes the wrong thing dramatic. The lion is exciting. Cold is patient. A predator has to approach you. Cold is already touching you everywhere. It is pulling heat from hands, feet, face, and every place where your clothing fits badly or your protection from wind is weak. You begin to understand why a fitted garment is not a minor invention. Loose skin can cover you. Fitted clothing can move with you and trap insulating air closer to the body. Layering can improve that effect. A hood, sleeve, leg covering, or better seam is not fashion when the landscape is trying to drain warmth for hours. Technology does not need to look impressive to change human history. Sometimes it looks like a tiny hole in a bone needle. The fire sinks lower. Nobody panics. Someone notices. That detail may be the whole story of human survival. Problems are corrected before they become emergencies. Fuel is shifted. The glow brightens. Flame returns. The small orange world expands again. You suddenly see how misleading the phrase survival of the fittest can sound. Nothing around the fire is the strongest animal alive. A mammoth could outweigh every person here combined. A cave lion could overpower one human easily. A wolf can smell and hear things you miss. A reindeer can live in cold with an ease your body cannot copy. Humans do something else. They stack solutions. Hide plus stitching. Fire plus shelter. Tools plus planning. Knowledge plus cooperation. No single advantage is magical. Together they change the rules. Past midnight, tiredness becomes its own landscape. Your eyelids feel heavy. Your back aches from the ground. Smoke catches in your throat when the wind turns. Every position becomes uncomfortable after long enough. You start to understand another thing that bones cannot show easily. Ice Age life was not a non-stop action scene. It contained long stretches of waiting. Waiting for weather. Waiting for animals. Waiting for daylight. Waiting while cold slowly tested every weak point in the system. That waiting may be harder for you than the fear. Your modern world is designed to attack boredom. Here, boredom sits beside danger. If you become careless because nothing has happened for hours, that may be exactly when a small mistake finally matters. A figure near you rises and looks outward. You follow their gaze. Nothing. Then a shape moves across a patch of paler snow. It is large enough to make your stomach tighten. For a heartbeat, it seems enormous. Then the shape changes angle, and you realize how little the darkness has given you. Maybe it is a reindeer, maybe a horse, maybe something else moving past the camp without any interest in you. The moment passes. Your body does not get the message right away. Your heart keeps racing. This is the cruel trick of the night. Most things you fear will not attack you, but you cannot afford to assume that nothing will. So attention stays expensive. Near the coldest part of the night, the group pulls closer together. The fire is still there. The shelter is still there. Your clothing is still doing its quiet work. The predators, if any remain nearby, have not tested the camp. You begin to think you have answered the question. Yes, you can survive one Ice Age night. Then comes the twist. You have been asking the wrong version of the question. Could you survive tonight? Probably, if you are allowed to borrow everything the people around you know. But could you create the conditions that made tonight survivable? Could you know where to stop before sunset? Could you recognize what weather is coming? Could you help acquire food in a landscape with no shop and no stored modern supply chain? Could you make and maintain clothing from raw animal material? Could you understand tracks before they disappear under new snow? Could you know when a cave is shelter and when it belongs to something stronger than you? Could you keep making good decisions after weeks of cold, hunger, travel, injuries, arguments, failed hunts, sick children, damaged tools, and bad weather? One night is almost unfairly easy. The real achievement was doing it again and again and again for entire lifetimes. That is what the archaeological record is really showing when humans appear in cold Ice Age environments. Not one miracle night, a functioning system. Culture is the invisible animal standing beside the fire. It has no bones of its own, so it is easy to underestimate. But it lives in every prepared hide, every repaired tool, every remembered route, every shared warning, every practiced skill, every person teaching another person what a sound in the dark means. The strangest thing about humans in the Ice Age is not that we were tougher than the cold. We were not. It is not that we were stronger than the giant animals. We were not. It is that a physically ordinary primate learned how to carry solutions from one generation into the next. And once knowledge could accumulate, every child was born into a world that previous humans had already spent thousands of years learning how to survive. The eastern sky begins to change. At first, you are not sure it is real. Black becomes deep blue becomes gray. The edge of the landscape returns piece by piece. A ridge appears, then grass, then tracks you could not see during the night. The fire looks less powerful now because the world around it is becoming visible again. Nothing enormous is waiting 5 steps away. No lion is frozen in mid-pounce. No monster rises from the snow. The night simply ends. And somehow that makes it more impressive. You survived without defeating the Ice Age. You survived because, for a few hours, you were allowed to belong to a group that already knew how to live inside it. So, could you survive a night in the Ice Age? With warm clothing, a useful shelter, a maintained fire, enough food, and experienced people around you, you might have a real chance. Alone, without their knowledge, your odds collapse fast. That is the answer hiding behind the firelight. The greatest Ice Age survival tool was never one weapon, one shelter, or one flame. It was the ability to combine them, remember them, improve them, and share them. The giants had fur, the predators had teeth, humans had each other, and when the sun finally came back, we were still here. If you want to spend another night in the world of giant animals and the humans who lived beside them, subscribe. There are a lot more shadows beyond this fire.